I couldn't believe it. My heart sank as I read the email that had just landed in my inbox. The subject line was clear: board meeting attendance. And yet, somehow, my name was conspicuously absent from the invite list. My contributions, my late nights, and endless brainstorming sessions had been brushed aside like yesterday's news. How did they not see the value of what I brought to the table? As I stared blankly at my screen, the world around me faded. The hum of the office, the murmur of colleagues trading ideas over coffee, all blurred into a dull roar. But the anger that was beginning to bubble up inside me was sharp and clear. This was my project, my blood, sweat, and tears, I muttered under my breath, fury coursing through my veins. Determined not to let this slide, I sat down at my desk, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. The fluorescent lights above flickered, casting a sterile glow over my workspace. Taking a deep breath, I opened a new email. "Dear board members," I typed, my pulse racing. "I regret not being able to attend the meeting, but I believe my insights could greatly benefit our discussions. Attached are my notes and suggestions regarding the upcoming project." As I hit send, adrenaline surged through me, electrifying every nerve ending in my body. I was anxious and hopeful all at once. The vibrating silence was broken only a few minutes later by a notification. It was from Derek, the board's chair. My stomach twisted into knots as I opened his reply, and right there, in the cold digital light, was a critical revelation. "Thank you for your input. We have some serious issues at hand you may not be aware of. Let's discuss." Suddenly, the stakes felt higher than I had anticipated. What could be beneath the surface of this seemingly straightforward corporate facade? I felt as if I had stumbled into a minefield, where every step could trigger a disaster, yet I was also standing at the threshold of opportunity. Before we delve deeper into this murky situation, let me take a moment to say something important. You know, YouTube has been known to remove subscriptions randomly. So, do check if you're still subscribed and like this video to show your support. Now, let's return to the tangled web of secrets waiting to ensnare me. As I closed my laptop, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was on the cusp of something much bigger than a simple board meeting. What dark truths lay hidden in the shadows of my workplace? And would I be ready to handle them when they finally unraveled? I paced my small office, the anxiety coiling in my chest like a tightly wound spring. Derek's words echoed in my mind. Serious issues at hand. What did that even mean? I couldn't shake the feeling that I had stumbled onto a path fraught with intrigue, and I was being pulled into depths I never intended to explore. The following days were a blur of tension. My colleagues whispered and exchanged glances, their behaviors shifting like sand beneath my feet. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken words, and I felt like an outsider infiltrating an inner circle. I began to question whom I could trust. As I pieced together fragments of conversations, I realized the company was teetering on the brink of a significant overhaul, something that could either skyrocket our fortunes or plunge us into chaos. While I worked on my next project, I couldn't help but listen in on the chatter around the lunchroom. It was there that I first heard the name Greg Pembroke, the enigmatic figure at the helm of the newly proposed changes. Some viewed him as a visionary, others as a ruthless tyrant. My heart raced when a colleague mentioned how he had a way of getting rid of those who posed a threat to his vision. "Have you seen what he did to the last guy?" she whispered, eyes wide with caution. Instinctively, I glanced around. Was I becoming one of those threats? My notes had already made waves. Now, I needed to navigate this perilous landscape with care. Then, out of the blue, my phone buzzed with a new message from Derek. "Meet me at the cafe down the street. We need to talk." The chill that ran through me was mixed with a flicker of anticipation. What could he possibly want to discuss? As I walked toward the cafe, my stomach churned like a stormy sea. With each step, a question settled in my mind. Was I walking into an alliance or a trap? And more importantly, would my next move seal my fate inside this corporate chess game? Little did I know, the answers I sought could shatter everything I presumed to know about my career and myself. The cafe was buzzing with life, but all I could focus on was the knot in my stomach. As I pushed the door open, the scent of freshly brewed coffee enveloped me, yet it didn't ease my anxiety. I spotted Derek at the corner table, his expression serious, a heavy storm cloud looming over us. "Thanks for coming," he said, his voice low, glancing around as if the walls had ears. "I wanted to speak with you privately before things take a turn." My heart raced. "What do you mean? What's going on?" He leaned in closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "I can't go into too much detail here, but Greg Pembroke is planning something, and it's not good." "Is that why I wasn't invited to the meeting? Are they trying to silence me?" I felt my pulse quicken, the anger bubbling back to the surface. Derek nodded, his eyes serious. "It's bigger than that. Your notes, your insights, have put you on their radar. Some believe you could disrupt the plans they've laid out. You have to tread carefully." I mulled over his words. Was I truly a threat? Or was this some elaborate game? If they want to keep me out, then they must be afraid of what I know. But fear can lead to desperation. Derek took a deep breath. "Exactly. They could try to manipulate you, discredit you, or worse. But I think you hold the key. You might have the power to turn this around." The realization sent shivers down my spine. Power? Me? The thought was intoxicating, but the risks were staggering. What should I do? Should I go public or keep this between us? "There's a delicate balance," he replied. "Play your cards right, and you can be the one to shape what happens next. But you need to decide. What are you willing to risk?" We locked eyes, and I felt a flicker of resolve ignite within me. Perhaps it was time to turn the tables, but as I left the cafe, a question lingered in my mind. Was I prepared to fight a battle that could cost me more than I ever imagined? The real challenge was only just beginning, and the clock was ticking. How much time did I have before they struck? As I left the cafe, a rush of adrenaline pulsed through my veins. It felt like I had stepped into a political thriller, with the stakes higher than I'd ever anticipated. I walked briskly back to the office, my mind racing with thoughts and strategies that twisted and turned like a maze. The weight of Derek's words sat heavy on my shoulders. "You have the power to turn this around." I stepped into my cubicle and took a moment to gather myself. The usual sounds of typing, laughter, and casual chatter filled the room, but everything felt muted, as if I was seeing my colleagues through a fog. They had no idea what was happening behind the scenes, and I was torn between playing the unsuspecting pawn or unveiling myself as a wild card. "Hey, you okay?" Lisa, a co-worker I'd known for years, popped her head over the low divider. She looked concerned, and for a moment I wondered if I could confide in her. But as I searched her face for signs of trust, I quickly decided that discretion was paramount. "Yeah, just a bit swamped with work," I replied, trying to sound nonchalant. But she must have sensed the tension behind my words because her brow furrowed with suspicion. "Right, let me know if you need anything," she said, her tone casual but her eyes studying me. "Will do." Wag. I smiled tightly, but the moment she walked away, my thoughts drifted back to Greg Pembroke and the uncertain future that loomed over our company. What was he planning? And did my notes truly carry enough weight to shift the tides? I felt both empowered and terrified. As the day dragged on, I found it increasingly hard to focus on my work. Rather, I felt the gravitational pull of the boardroom, where decisions that could change everything were being made. Could I infiltrate the inner circle without becoming a target? My fingers trembled slightly as I clicked through my emails, searching for anything that could give me insight into the upcoming meeting, anything that could expose Greg's intentions. An idea sparked in my mind. What if I started gathering intel from my sources within the company? Casual conversations over coffee breaks, lunch discussions, any snippets of information that could reveal what was really happening. I would need to be discreet, but if Derek was right, I could broker some power of my own. I decided to start with Jenna from marketing. She was always well informed and had her finger on the pulse of the company's upcoming strategies. I approached her desk when I saw she was free, leaning in slightly to keep our conversation private. "Hey, Jenna, got a minute?" I asked, my voice light and casual. "Sure. What's up?" She looked up from her computer, a friendly smile on her face. "I was just wondering, have you heard any buzz about the new project proposals?" I inquired casually. "Oh, you mean the ones from the board meeting?" "Yeah, I have heard a few things actually," she replied, her intrigue piqued. "Like what?" I pressed, leaning in closer to encourage her to share. "Word is that Greg is pushing some really aggressive changes. It sounds like he wants to trim down the team. People are worried about their jobs," she said, pausing as if reconsidering how much she wanted to share with me. "But then, there's this idea that he's getting ready to ramp up some initiatives too. He seems to have a plan, but it's unclear what it entails." "Right. Changes can be scary," I said thoughtfully, trying to mask my own growing tension. "Do you think we're prepared for it?" Jenna shrugged, but I could see the worry etched on her face. "Honestly, it feels like a game of musical chairs. Everyone's nervous. People are whispering that Greg's on a power trip and trying to consolidate his influence. If you bring anything new to the table, he'll want to know about it, and not in a good way." Her words sent chills down my spine. If Greg was looking to consolidate his power, I had to tread carefully, especially with my notes now hanging in the balance. "Thanks for the heads up. Let's keep each other posted if we hear anything more, okay?" I said, keeping my tone light. But inwardly, I felt the weight of the impending storm beginning to gather. After our conversation, the office felt even more oppressive. I could sense the undercurrents shifting, alliances forming and fracturing as anticipation hung thick in the air. The core of our company was at risk, and my role in it was more crucial than I had imagined, but there was still much I didn't know. With every conversation, I captured pieces of a larger puzzle, and my instincts screamed that I needed to act before things unfolded beyond my control. I had to be proactive, a player in this high-stakes game before I could be played myself. Over the next few days, I connected with others, listening attentively to whispers and side remarks that pointed to a growing unease. It was a delicate dance, and I was learning how to navigate it with agility. I had become skilled at packing away my own worries to lend an ear to others, piecing together sentiments of fear and ambition that collided in our corporate atmosphere. Yet, despite my efforts to blend in and stay informed, one question loomed larger than the rest. How deeply would I have to dive into this web of intrigue? And while I played my cards close to the vest, I couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling of being watched. The price of knowledge often came at a steeper cost than I anticipated. The following week, another email notification from Derek brought a sudden surge of urgency. "We need to talk again. Things are moving faster than I expected. Meet me tomorrow after hours." My heart raced. What could this possibly mean? The secrets were deepening, and the consequences tied to them were weighing physically on my chest. What new developments awaited me? I felt like a moth drawn to the flame, acutely aware of the risks while irresistibly compelled to discover the truth. As the day dragged on, anticipation bubbled under my skin. The thought of confronting whatever chaos awaited behind those closed doors melded with both excitement and apprehension. Would I be able to harness this gathering storm for my own purposes and emerge unscathed? Or was I stepping into a trap from which there would be no escape? With the sun beginning to set, I tried to shift my focus back to my work, trying to establish a sense of normalcy. Yet each keystroke felt like a countdown to the collision of my current life and the unknown future. I was stepping into a game where every move mattered. As I left the office that day, a sense of purpose blended with anxiety surged through me. What unfurling truths awaited at our next meeting, and how would they reframe my role in this growing saga? I could feel the wheels in motion, and I steered into them head first. I was determined to shape the course of whatever was next. But would I be strong enough to wield the power being handed to me? Would I be prepared for the storm that was about to break? I walked out to my car, the weight of uncertainty heavy upon me, but my resolve was steadfast. The next chapter in this unfolding tale promised to be the most explosive yet, and I braced myself for whatever lay ahead, clinging to the hope that I could turn the tide in my favor. And just before my fingers gripped the steering wheel, another troubling thought crossed my mind. In this precarious game of power and deceit, who could I truly count on? I arrived at the cafe the next evening, my heart hammering as I pushed through the door. The familiar scent of coffee drifted into my senses, yet it felt suffocating amidst the tension I harbored inside. The room was less crowded than before, a stark contrast to the riot of emotions swirling within me. Derek was already sitting at our usual corner table, his brow furrowed in deep contemplation. As I approached him, his eyes met mine. There was an urgency in his gaze that sent a chill down my spine. "Thanks for coming," he said, voice low but intense. "I don't have much time." "What's going on?" I asked, my instincts kicking in as I took a seat across from him. I could sense something monumental was brewing. "There's been movement within the board. Greg is orchestrating something big, something that could jeopardize not only your position but the entire company," he explained, his tone gravely serious. My heart raced, the realization hitting me hard. "What do you mean? Are people talking?" "Not just talking. Rumors are swirling that he's planning to push out anyone who poses a potential threat to his agenda. Your notes have gained attention, but not in the way you hoped. What do you suggest I do?" I leaned forward, urgency in my voice. "I can't just sit back and watch this unravel." Derek took a deep breath, his hands clasped tightly together. "You have to gather your allies carefully. Identify who can be trusted. The clock is ticking, and if you don't act fast, Greg's plan will be cemented before anyone notices the cracks." The weight of his words pressed down on me, igniting a fire in my belly that I hadn't felt before. "Identify allies, right? Do you have anyone specific in mind?" He nodded. "Jenna from marketing, for starters. She's been concerned lately, and word has traveled her way. If you can get her on your side, you might be able to create a counter-movement. But be careful, they're observant." A plan began to hatch in my mind. I pictured pulling Jenna into my circle while continuing to gather intelligence from others around the office. It would be a delicate balance between urgent action and subtlety. After all, Greg's watchful gaze could turn deadly if provoked. "You're right. I'll talk to her," I said, determination firing through my veins. "But how do I keep this from blowing back on me?" Derek leaned in closer, lowering his voice even further. "You've done a good job so far. Keep it that way. Lay low, gather information, and don't act impulsively. They'll be targeting anyone who tries to disrupt Greg." I steeled my resolve, knowing that the coming days would require every ounce of my cunning to navigate the treacherous waters ahead. I felt the pulse of the office resonate in my veins, a heartbeat of potential that I could either empower or obliterate. "I can do this. I won't let them take my career without a fight." As those words left my mouth, a wave of commitment washed over me. Before I left, Derek said. And remember, you're not alone in this. I'll keep my ear to the ground. If things escalate, don't hesitate to reach out. Walking out of the cafe, a mix of dread and anticipation coursed through me. My mind was abuzz with plans, and I felt a powerful sense of control settling in. The kind that comes when you realize that despite the chaos around you, the power to change your fate sits in your own hands. I meticulously crafted a strategy over the next few days, running scenarios through my mind while keeping my interactions on the surface. I approached Jenna subtly at the lunch table, blending casual topics with the underlying threads of concern that tied us together. "Have you heard anything more about the upcoming projects from Greg?" I asked, and she nodded. "It feels like there's less transparency than ever," she replied, glancing around conspiratorially. "Something's brewing, but people are too scared to say much." My heart quickened. There was a kindred spirit in her concern. What if we changed that? Maybe we could gather some insights together, I proposed. Jenna's eyes sparkled with intrigue. "You're right. If we could get more people interested and aware, Greg might not be able to push his agenda so seamlessly." As we plotted, I felt a surge of excitement. Together, Jenna and I began to recruit others, reaching out to reliable colleagues while carefully skirting around prying ears. We worked quickly, building a coalition of like-minded individuals who sensed the impending storm. Every whispered conversation became a thread in a burgeoning tapestry of dissent, beautifully complex and uniformly desperate. The atmosphere shifted as more people began to share their concerns openly. It was exhilarating. Our discontent was igniting a collective spark that no longer felt so lonely. Yet with each passing day, the stakes climbed steadily higher. Greg was ever watchful, and I could feel the weight of his scrutiny growing. The secret meetings our growing group held were thrilling, but filled with shadows of uncertainty. Then one fateful afternoon, just as I felt the faintest whisper of triumph, everything shifted. My phone buzzed urgently, pulling me from my thoughts. I opened the message to find a photo, a snapshot of our meeting. Someone had seen us. My stomach dropped. My breath quickened as the implications washed over me like ice water. We weren't just trapped in a corporate game anymore. We were marked as potential threats. "Group meeting today. Updated protocols." Read the email from Derek shortly after. I felt my chest constrict. Greg was escalating the situation. It was time to act. I quickly gathered our coalition one last time. In whispered tones, we strategized a plan to counter the board's potential crackdown. We needed a controlled strike, one that would illuminate our concerns without being reckless. With each nod exchanged around that table, a unified determination solidified our resolve. Tonight, we sent a combined email to the board. I spoke passionately, heart racing as eyes filled with hope locked onto mine. "We will express our worries about the changes. This could be our voice, our moment to stand as one." The power resonated between us, electric and vibrant. With each keystroke as I crafted the email, my resolve solidified further. The details of Greg's plan, coupled with our collective aspirations, forged a narrative I hoped would cultivate change. As I hit send, I felt a wave of adrenaline, an empowering rush that tamed my fears and ignited a new sense of purpose. Would they listen? The answer unfolded rapidly. Within the hour, my inbox exploded with responses. Surprised, concerned, but above all, intrigued. And then came the automated response from Derek. "Let's meet. This could shift everything." An exhilarating hope mingled with very real fear as I realized the storm I had unleashed was more potent than I'd anticipated. I was in the thick of something incredible, but the shadows of uncertainty lay heavy upon us all. "Are we prepared for whatever comes next?" someone whispered from the group as we gathered one last time. "Whatever it is, we face it together," I replied resolutely. It was a moment of solidarity born from truth. Together, we would fight for our place in this unfolding narrative. As I left that meeting, thoughts of Greg and his impending fury swirled in my mind. Could we hold our ground, or would this decision seal our fates? And so, I found myself standing at a precipice, my pulse racing as I contemplated the uncertainty ahead. The battle was far from over, but it was ours now. If this tale of intrigue, resilience, and determination resonated with you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like this video to keep up with the twists and turns. Together, we unravel the stories that shape our journeys. The real fight had just begun, and I'd forge ahead with all I had.